I think we'll start. Uh, we welcome all of you for this program. As and when both Mr. Vivek and Mr. Chandrasekhar joins, we will add them into the conversation. We have a panel of eminent trade union leaders. All of you know them, and I don't think I need to do a special introduction of them. Amarjit Kaur started as a student uh, freedom fighter, student union leader, and an outstanding contributor for the women rights, uh, and of course, uh, grown up from the ranks, and now she's leading the AITC as well as the party. And Virjesh is again interestingly an MBA graduate from Pondicherry University and a BMS union leader. Very interesting ideological two leaders are already present. Then we have Vivek Montoria, who's going to join from Mumbai, a CITU union leader, very powerful firebrand union leader. And of course, Dr. Vivek is also a well-known union leader. And from Intact from Kerala, Mr. Chandrasekhar is joining in.
And already joined. He's here.
Thank you, Mr. Chandrasekhar. Welcome, welcome.
Oh, yeah.
That's great. So we have Chandrasekhar is also as a certain elections to go on, so he wants to leave by 5. I have requested him to stay back as much as possible. So we'll probably take him in the beginning. And to lead this whole conversation is none other than Sharad Gangal. Sharad Gangal, all of you would know, is the EVP of Thermax. Prior to that, he has had an excellent, outstanding stint. For me to introduce Sharad is something which I feel not right. It's such a senior person, well-known person, and his stint in Asian Paints, everybody would know. So, and all the questions of the participants should be curated by Vittal Rao, a leading labor law consultant from Karnataka, a good colleague of mine. So I would now hand it over to Sharad to set the context and start the dialogue and conversation.
Thank you, Deen Dayalan ji, and it's my pleasure and privilege to be present and to be the host for one of the unique webinars, or whatever you may call, because one has been participating in webinars which are largely addressed by management people. However, this, as the name itself conveys, the other side of the coin is about understanding another viewpoint too. It will be interesting to know, and it will be a good change, good diversity, because we have been hearing only one side of the view. We have 4 eminent trade union leaders of national level and national stature. What we will do is we will give 4 to 5 minutes to each of them to put their overview in terms of as to what they feel and what they sense out of this draft code. No, it's not a draft code, it's a code. The rules are yet to be formed, and that's the caveat I wanted to put. Rules are not yet clear. We don't know how many state governments will embrace it and how many will not. But nevertheless, it's a good thing that a dialogue has started on a subject which is intended to bring about good for everybody, and that's the intention. With this very brief context, since Mr. Chandrasekharan has to leave early, I think he has the privilege of putting forth his views first as an overview of the 4 codes which have just been announced, and we are all talking about it. Over to you, Mr. Chandrasekhar.
For Mr. Chandrasekhar, you have to unmute.
Still he's mute. Chandrasekhar ji, unmute, please.
चंद्रशेखरन जी, म्यूट है आपका. Please unmute it. We can't hear you. Unmute it.
Amarjit ji has transferred his technical problem to Chandrasekhar. Now he is facing.
No, he is calling somebody for help. Take help of somebody, Chandrasekhar ji.
Oh,
Yes,
hello.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it is okay. It
Is
is
it
okay.
audible?
Okay.
Is it
Yeah,
audible?
Yes, it is audible. Please start.
Is it audible?
Audible, audible.
Oh.
Yes, sir, you are audible.
Okay,
You can
okay,
start.
okay.
You can give a overview in
So
4
I am,
5
you know,
minutes.
I am struggling. I am struggling with this technology because you know that my computer is not ready now. So I have entered in the conversation through a mobile phone. That is the difficulty. Anyway, sorry for the inconvenience. So this is a very important subject you have taken for conversation and deliberate upon. Naturally, the labor codes, which we have already totally opposed the trade unions in the country, totally opposed. And the labor codes, which has been totally rejected by the trade unions in the country, including BMS, is also not happy with that labor codes and the change of labor laws, which is provided protection of labor and social security, healthcare, etc., etc. But anyway, labor code has been passed in the parliament without any much debate. And in a democracy, without debate in the parliament, without discussion in the parliament, any enactment passed by the parliament is not an enactment according to the democracy rights. But unfortunately, it is happening in India, and the decades old labor protective enactments, and we have no hesitation to say that any law can be modified according to the needs of the hour. But this modification, mixing all the 44 about labor law and amendments together, put into labor codes, 4 labor codes, is an undemocratic manner, and it is not acceptable to the trade unions in the country. And that too, the working hours, the social security system, the the Factories Act, and the trade union rights, and totally it is curbing the entire legitimate right of the labor attained and achieved by a lot of struggles and demonstrations and a lot of labor movements. But unfortunately, this has been passed by the government in a hasty manner without considering the other side of the view. The view means we know that you all agree with me about the activity now undertaken each and every sector of the people or each and every country in the world. See, capital is necessary, no doubt about it. So capital, when capital is there, there has to be a government or even whatever activity the government wishes or the people needed. So capital, government, and labor. When there is a capital, if labor is not there, nothing will come out. So labor is an important factor in the activity. That is why we always believe in the 3-pillar system. One is the capital, another one is the governance, number 3 is the labor. So without labor, no capital will give a result. Without labor, no government can give a result in their performance. So the labor is an important factor in the activity. Unfortunately, that 3-pillar system is gone. In India, for the last 6 years, no tripartite consultation, no Indian Labour Conference has been held for the last 5 years. No tripartite discussion, no genuine consultation, without any consultation with the important factor, important component of the activity, labor, the government is moving ahead. Government is moving ahead, and what is the result today? The other side of the labor code or other side of the governance, what is the result today? The result is that we are dipped into minus 24 GDP, and we are passing through labor laws for the last 50 years or 45 years. Labor laws. There is no labor potentiality. There is no labor employment. There is no improvement in the unemployment system. So there is no proper distribution. So economically, we are now in a very bad shape. And labor issue, there is no labor new recruitments. And on the other hand, the permanent jobs are taken away by privatizing the government sector companies, public sector companies, and job loss is a very big issue now. And employment is the major issue in the country facing. And any government comes with a promise saying that every year 2 crore jobs will be created and provided for the youth and educated youth. That is not happen. On the other side, labor loss is there, no labor but employment is there. So the country is facing a very
I think his internet is down.
big issue in all. It's a very complicated situation which we are passing through. So what we say, this is a wonderful webinar which takes a topic, what is the after effect of labor codes and the other side view of the labor codes. The view which has been enacted by Government of India and what will for
I think we have lost him because we can't even see him here.
Oh, that is a problem then. Anyway, I conclude by saying that I express my views of 3-pillar system, which is equally important for any government, any country, any community. That 3-pillar system should be developed and consultation should be there. And without consultation, without the importance of the labor, no capital will function, no government can function. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. You stated it upfront what was in your mind, and we take this compliment for letting the organizers know that for the first time somebody is ready to hear the other side of the story. With this, Madam Amarjit Kaur, I request you to please state your views.
Thank you.
Thank you. First of all, I thank the organizers of this webinar because it's very important to hear all sides of stories before reaching to the whole conclusions where tripartism could succeed and tripartism could function, the point which was raised by Chandrasekhar ji. Chandrasekharan ji has raised certain issues and all. I don't repeat them. I make in the limited time my views on the whole issue. When the questions come, I'll be able to reply. But in the beginning, I want to say that COVID was a challenge to all. When I say challenge to all, means all sides of the coin, I should say. But then in this COVID period, labor has been targeted badly. I know that businesses suffered. I know industry suffered. All that happened, but the labor was on the receiving end. It happened as we saw what happened to the migrant workers, and it happened in the form of retrenchments, losing of jobs, and no wages of lockdown period, and then cuts on wages is a big issue, and the increase in the working hours and perpetuation of further casualization of contractualization. Now, this is the labor we are talking about, which is the wealth producer. This is the labor we are talking about, which provides the services. So, codes or no codes, this is the reality. Capital has to work, and the labor has to work. After capital invested, then the labor works on it to further increase the capital and create wealth. So we definitely we have to think beyond COVID also, as the subject says, other side of the coin, perspective on course beyond COVID, because COVID is not going to remain ever. So how we address during COVID period, then how it happens in the post-COVID is important discussion generated today where we are participating. Now here, actually, what are the acts supposed to do or codes supposed to do? So that there is a cordial environment in industry, in the workplace. The workers who sweat for producing wealth and providing services, they want proper wages, they want proper working hours, they want workplace safety, compensation, social security, present and future. That is what all they want. And in that situation, what is necessary is that there should be dialogue. Bipartism, tripartism becomes very important. So rather bipartism, even before tripartism comes, bipartism is the first step where workers should be able to talk to the management and whosoever is the front person of the management to speak. And here I know that HR people are the people who are to first of all interact with the workers. When the dispute arises, what do? We have conciliation, we have adjudication, we have a system, we have a mechanism of that. And that's where the role of HR also comes. So if the adjudication fails, conciliation fails, then only we go to the courts also, all that we do. And agitations happen, then the right to strike comes into picture. All that is when the dialogue fails, when the conciliation fails, all that comes. But here, are we going towards industrial peace? I would say with the coming of these codes, we are not heading towards industrial peace. We will be increasing the conflicts, and which will not help industry, which will not help workers. There won't be conducive environment, so that's not good for anybody, neither it is good for the development of the country. But what is happening is that district courts are supposed to be removed, tribunal will be there, which is used by government employees actually. Then the contractors' license is in their threshold is increased, 50 and plus they will have license. So all the contract workers and outsourced workers will be in real problem. This will increase tensions, it will increase conflicts, it will not be bringing peace. Similarly, Factory Act thresholds have been increased, Apprentice Act has been changed. All this will push out many of the workers out of the worker definition itself. Then if you look at occupational safety health, again it is 10 and above. Only there it will apply. That means 90% of the workforce of India will be out of any kind of occupational and safety health. So it is not inclusive. This is also exclusive. This is another problem. And we already know yesterday itself there was another accident in Gujarat. Several accidents have happened. Accident happened in Visakhapatnam. These accidents happen in UP. In the opening of this industry, the care is not being taken up of safety measures, and the accidents have started happening and the workers are losing their lives. So this occupational safety health code, if we look at the other side of the coin, is that the workers will be losing their life and it is exclusive. Many workers will be left out. So we do not agree with the government which says that it will give safety to everybody. Then this working condition safety and the welfare measures, they have clubbed together. This is not going to help. This needs to be decentralized rather, instead of clubbing it together. Same thing has happened with the social security for all, they are saying, but simultaneously weakening ESIC and EPF. So this again, it is only the organized industry where ESIC and PF is there. 90% of workers are even out of this ambit. So this social security talks of social security to all, but it will actually be excluding workers. There is no time that we could go into debate of this. I'm just touching these points. For example, the new pension scheme, the workers are already opposed to it. They want old pension scheme, but the government through all these steps is actually adding new pension scheme even to those who were on old pension scheme. If you talk on code on wages, again it camouflages. It talks of 15th Indian Labour Conference to be taken into cognizance while fixing minimum wages. But when the Labour Minister spoke in Parliament and when they explained later on, it is much lower than what 15th ILC said. So they said it, but they are not respecting what they are saying it. Then the whole tripartism issue which has been raised by Chandrasekharan ji, 5 years have elapsed. Indian Labour Conference did not help, was not held. Then the way these codes have been adopted, only the ruling party MPs were present in Lok Sabha and in Rajya Sabha. Whole opposition was out of Lok Sabha, out of Rajya Sabha. They were in protest because 8 of the Rajya Sabha MPs had been removed after there was a ruckus in the Rajya Sabha on these farm bills. So how can you pass such acts, labor codes, adopt it without discussion in Parliament? This is what happened. So in a way, tripartism was not done and neither Parliament was respected, and these codes have been imposed on us. And Sharad ji said, because rules are not yet framed, how state governments will be responding. Naturally, we will be building up pressure on the state governments not to accept these codes in toto the way they are designed. We would want our workers to be defended, and we would want industrial peace. It's not only the owners who are wanting industrial peace. It is we, the workers, also wanting industrial peace. We want to earn our bread, and we want safety. We want equal treatment. We want justice of wages, and we want security for us of today and of tomorrow. So all those issues are there. We think that it is very, very necessary that on this dialogue goes. I would want the HRs to understand one thing. Workers are human beings. The approach should be human. They should think beyond labor codes also. They should think beyond act and codes also, because their role is supposed to be, they are a buffer zone in between to see to it that the workers feel satisfied and they do good for the industry. Similarly, if the employers want that their profit has to be more, then it is HR who has to see that you cannot earn profits and huge profits by, making workers fleece. You can't fleece them. You have to be honest to them. Of course, businesses need profit, but it should not happen. Now, what has happened? Just 20 years ago, the share of labor cost was 50%. And the profit was much less percentage out of the total turnover. What is the situation today? That cost on labor has reduced to less than 10%. And the cost of profit has increased manifold. So if this will be done when the inflation is happening, price rise is happening, education, healthcare, everything is expensive, rent is expensive, everything is happening in such a situation. If somebody thinks that workers can be suppressed to the wall and pushed to the wall, that will not bring in any peace in the industry. So during COVID or beyond COVID, there has to be realization. Nobody till today I have been demanding one study should be quoted to us where the workers' rights were taken away, bipartisan, tripartisan was weakened, workers were left to suffer to the core, and then the industry flourished. I can produce several of the studies which told wherever employers took care of workers, there the businesses flourished. Those conducting those businesses got good name. They got good name even in the marketing of their products. Those studies are there, but there is not a single study where you suppress the workers and then you see it. So collective bargaining is something, I'm concluding, collective bargaining is something important. And in India, just a year before, in 2 years period, there were 16 instances in industries where HR people or somebody else in the management lost their lives. Violence happened at workplace. We do not justify this kind of violence, but none of the incident happened where any union affiliated to any of the centrally recognized trade unions was there. All these places, it was either management pocket unions or some individuals running some unions who had nothing to do with the central trade union. So collective bargaining is something which helps workers, which also helps managements for conducive peace, so that business also goes on, but the workers who are producers of wealth, they also gain a respectful life. That is how I look at this thing. So the HR should allow unions, should respect unions, should have continuous dialogue, so that there is a trust building instead of mistrust building. That is how I look at it. So these codes, as Chandrasekharan ji said, and I know my other trade union colleagues will be speaking, they are not acceptable to us in these present forms. There has not been serious consultation, and now when the rule framing happens, we are going to challenge these codes in present form, and 26th November, we are going for a nationwide strike also, all the central trade unions together. At present, I stop at that. Sharad ji can carry forward the discussion further with others.
Thank you, madam. You made a mention of HR 3-4 times, and we are honored that you have such high expectations from HR. Let me tell you, as somebody who represents HR, we have been telling that no HR from an organized sector at least should take pride in saying that we pay minimum wages. We say it openly from our platforms because, you know, minimum wages is not a panacea for today's living. So to that extent, be assured that we also show that kind of understanding of where we are going. Secondly, we are also saying there is a FTC provision which has been made, and we are warning industries, and I've been speaking seminars after seminars, telling them, please do not exploit the flexibility arbitrage which has been given to you. Don't convert it into cost arbitrage. Don't start practices of 6 months termination of FTC so that you don't have to pay gratuity. I think this point must be made. Be assured, we will work together to create a new India. Code we may differ, but things we have to take it forward. With this, I request Mr. Brijesh ji to state his views. Thank you, Amarjit ma'am.
Thank you, Sharad ji. I'm really thankful, grateful to the organizers for organizing the event very timely, and also I thanks all the participants for showing interest to be here. To me, Sharad ji, this labor law or any law, those who are powerful, they have their own law. They can interpret, manipulate, frame, deframe the way they wanted. So law is always needed for the poor, for the weaker. And in this background, when I'm analyzing the labor laws, I put it into three contents. One is coverage of the legislation. So after independence of this 75 years, still we are covering only 3% of workforce into the labor laws. Rest 93% is still outside ambit of any legislation. So when we talk labor laws, so labor means those 93%, they are also labor. They do contribute for the growth, for the development, but I have not seen any voice or any concern talking about all such things. So when I talk to the coverage, I'm very sorry. This is very unfortunate. Even after 75 years of independence, we could not see the workers or laborers in totality. That's during this pandemic, we have seen these migrant workers. It is ill fate of this type of approach, in spite of the strong trade unionism, but still 93% is in this. So this is one. And the next we see what had been in the past, whether we could enforce the labor laws. We have a law, Contract Labor Regulation and Evolution. It's a law of 1970, and in this 2020, when we are talking, almost entire organized sector is almost converted into contract system. All the perennial nature works are being converted into contract work. So what about enforcement? Whether could enforce? I'm meeting both. I'm talking to our friends within our trade unions, and I do talk to the industries, whether we have tried to analyze, go into reality, what could happen, why we could not enforce the laws. Having law, and if it is not implemented, so it means there is no meaning to have law. Those intellectual people, we are sitting here, liars, they do have meaning for laws, but the person affected, whether they have any meaning to have this law or not, that is the one important issue to be discussed, to be noted. And the third one is what are the shortcomings? What should be, what could be? Not just a mere post-mortem job, what has happened in the. I always used to say, this post-mortem job must be over. We should come at front, hold from the front, analyze the intent of the government, policy makers, and come up with the proposal what should be. And industry, trade union, first they should come what actually they needed. Why I say both should come? Because as Saraj said, neither industry is happy, nor trade unions are happy. For whom you are bringing these laws? Both the sections are crying, both are having objections. Even nobody is happy, for whom you are cooking all such things. So this is very important aspect, but unfortunately, these bipartite forum persons or the organizations, we are unnecessarily involved into bullfighting. That has no meaning to it. We should have been come together, sit together, have a long-lasting discussion. What should be actually for industry, for the workers, what laws should be there which can be implemented, and how everybody is talking, it's a human. Nobody says it's not human, but human treatment with the human approach, it is nowhere visible. So we have to go into reality, the practical aspects of these laws. Going into English grammar of these laws, legislation, how fine they have drafted, how fine not, how it is going to affect or not. It's a matter maybe for intellectuals. But if you ask me, person like me working in the field, I have seen laws, if they are not enforceable, it means we have no meaning if it is there or it is not there. So it is one thing to understand. And when I'm analyzing, introspection is being done. I'm Bharatiya Mazdoor Sangh, and we are working how to find the solution to all such things. Because without worker, there is no industry, and without industry, there is no workmanship. we both need each other. Then what should be the formula workable solution to come? So we have started sitting with the persons in the industry, the persons in the academia, the persons in the trade union field, how we can sit and find the solution, how we both can have a joint this one solution and go to the government to put their stamp. This is the law we need. And the next important task is, it's a trade union and MSME. Their combination is most important now. They both are suffering. They both have, because the maximum employment is in the MSME, and these laws are badly affecting them. So they have also don't voice. These workers also don't voice. So two poor sections should come together to have strength to say something jointly with the loud verdict. This one. So we are working how to these MSME, the small sectors and trade unions, workers means a wider combination of workers movement. Workers means it should be an inclusive movement. Those who are affected with these laws, those who may say we can't enforce, those who say I'm not getting the benefit of these laws, they all should come together. And a larger, a wider, this combination is required to come. And equally, a SWOT analysis is required to be undertaken by the workers' organization, by the industry and all others. Those who are advocating that these laws are only solution, only reforms can bring the industrialization, growth, is that all is a nonsense approach. With this approach, last experience during these past, after this globalization or whatever you say, we could not provide the quality employment or the decent quality employment whatsoever. And we were crying, these labor laws are coming as a hindrance. Again, I say, whatever reform has come, as Amarjit and my friend Chandrasekhar has said, we have not endorsed this labor laws because we are of the conclusive view that these laws are not going to solve the problem. They are going to give certain liberty to the industry for hire and fire, this, that, means how they can treat human as a inhuman. So this is opportunity going to be given, and this is not going to solve the industrialization or the job opportunities or something other. So these laws have no meaning either to industry or to trade union or to workers. So a new approach, new mechanism, and a new paradigm of discourse is required to be adopted. I'm attending number of webinars. All are coming with a set question. This is the question and what should be answered. Sometimes I find really this is question. If it is question, really these are not the question. Question is something different. But unnecessarily, intellectuals, academics, and many those, they are coming together with a ready-made question and to find a ready-made solution. That is not going to have any effect on the ground. So one should understand what are the ground realities, what could be the solution to the ground reality. So a exhaustive review, SWOT analysis is required to be undertaken by industry, by trade union. What way we are practicing, whether it has succeeded in spite of joint struggle by trade union movements, workers' condition is going worse day by day. It is deteriorating. So we all need to introspect whether the way, the tools, the practices we are practicing, it is working. If not, what new methods, what new tools, what new strategies required to be adopted, that needs to be taken. And equally industry also. Many of the industries have done very nice job during this COVID. We have welcomed them also. So there are many. They all need to come together. What these should take, what initiative we should take, what policy we should take, other than this paradigm, other than this discourse, then only a solution can come. For the fighting, we have number of issues to say on this, we have disagreement. But I think we are not here to find the fault. We are here and we all should be having approach to find the solution. What could be the solution? We all have differences. Industry is at a different pace, trade unions are at different pace. This trade union may be some different, other may be some different. So we are not here to count the differences, who have much, who has less. The approach should be, what should be the solution? And only the new way of thought, new paradigm of new discourse of the approaches can solve the problem. This is the conclusive approach of the Bharatiya Mazdoor Sangh, and we are working towards, we are trying to engage the industry, the trade unions, that all should come together, find a new means, new ways, new tools to address these issues. In this paradigm, in this course, nothing is going to happen. No change is going to come. Workers will get more first position, wealth may go up, but the situation of the country, the common man, it is not going to change. So new ways, new means need to find. Industry, trade union, all should come together to have a new way, new discourse, new paradigm. That is the solution. That can be only solution. With this, I think I should conclude. Thank you, Sarji.
Thank you, Virendra ji. Brijesh ji, you know, yes, your focus was still, even if you don't agree, try to build consensus is the theme that you put forth. We also know, and Amarjit ji madam also spoke about, you know, when we were young students of labor studies, every day there would be a news about a central trade union, HMS, BMS, C2, ITUC, INTUC. Today, we rarely find in the pink papers any name of any central trade union leaders or central trade unions, forget leaders. It's a question to all of us whether we are moving away from a philosophy and going to a short term. I don't know. I'm a moderator, so I can't go beyond this, but we all have to think why this has happened, why this has happened. And my next question is ready. I'm eager to ask that because it is related to trade unions. But before that, we have a very senior management consultant, Mr. Vittala Rao. If he has very quick thoughts, I would like to invite him to speak. And then I will go to my next question, which I'm sure is very close to your heart. Thank you.
Sharad ji, I'm here. I have also logged in.
Okay. Sorry, sir, I did not know. So,
Vivek,
sir, preference goes to you, Vivek ji.
Okay.
We were so engrossed that I did not notice. My apologies.
Right. Good evening, all the friends, and my greetings to the senior leaders from the central trade unions who are participating in this session. On behalf of CITU, I would like to place a few points in this discussion. I'll just put them very pointedly, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The first point is that these 4 labor codes, they are, in our opinion, a historic event. In fact, they are a historic attack on working class rights. In fact, they are a historic attack on a long history, because our working class rights, which are there today, they did not come up, accidentally. There is a long history of almost 120, 140 years, which I'm not going to here, but we have to keep that in mind. This history of working class rights, beginning with the first Factories Acts, which were introduced as a result of efforts of people like Narayan Meghaji Lokhande. This history is also closely linked to our national struggle. And in fact, if you want to look at the origins of labor law in our country today, they are there in a very important resolution which was passed in the Karachi Congress in 1931, which was chaired by Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel. And in that Karachi Congress, 2 things were enacted. One was some suggestions, very basic suggestions for labor laws, and the other was suggestions for the Indian Constitution. So I would say that this history of labor laws and labor rights is also closely linked to the formation of our Constitution and is closely linked to the rights which are there in the Indian Constitution. Since we're talking about history, I will also re-emphasize what Comrade Amarjit mentioned here, that this is the 100th anniversary of the first All India Trade Union federation in our country. The All India Trade Union Congress was formed in 1920. And it is an unfortunate development that this government has seen it fit to attack labor rights in this 100th anniversary of the trade union. Second point I want to make is that these changes are basically unilateral changes. They have not come as a result of a tripartite consultation between industry, labor organizations, and the government. And that is a very basic issue, which I'll come to in 1 minute. The third point I want to make is that this is a major step, not only for what it has done, but for what it has undone. 29 laws have been repealed, and that is part of these 4 labor codes being enacted. And in each and every area, it is a major step backward. I would say that there is very little application of mind while drafting these labor codes. And some proposals are so ridiculous that I don't think anybody can agree to them. I'll give you just one example. In the Industrial Relations Code, section 952, which is about registration of trade unions, it says that the trade union registrar can cancel the registration of any union when? Only on receipt of information that the union has violated any aspect of the Industrial Relations Code. Any provision of the Industrial Relations Code, if it has been violated, that is sufficient reason, and only receipt of information is needed. Now, this is putting a lot of powers into the hands of an officer. And I will say that supposing these 4 codes were applicable today, then in December, the registrations of all the unions would have to be cancelled, because on 26th of November, all the unions are going to go on strike. And this is going to be against the provisions of the Industrial Relations Code. So therefore, in December 2020, the registration of, if these codes were in effect, they're not yet in effect, but if they were in effect, December 2020, the registrations of all the unions would be cancelled. Now, it is absurd, but it is also not something which has happened accidentally. It is a part and parcel of the way in which this government is trying to misuse the administrative apparatus in order to encroach upon the rights of various sections. This is not the subject of the discussion today, but I would say this is part and parcel of that approach of this government. I will also not talk much about what are the problems with the other codes. The Social Security Code, in fact, goes back again unilaterally on many things, reduces the Provident Fund contribution from 12% to 10%. It mixes up occupational health and safety with service conditions of, for example, contract workers. Even in contract workers, about which the government has made so many statements about their concern for the unorganized sector, but even there, it is excluding many contract workers from the rights that they had today under the existing contract labor legislation. So I was just giving these examples. I can give many more, but it is a major step backward. Now, the third point I want to make is that I think all HR professionals understand that HR problems really arise and have to be seen in the backdrop of economic issues. You have to understand that economic developments are going to have their consequences for the HR issues. And I would say that therefore these labor codes can be summarized in one sentence. They are the wrong steps being taken at the wrong time. You know, sometimes the statement is made about taking the right steps at the right time. These are the wrong steps being taken at the wrong time. And I would like to pose a question here. The first question is, see, the labor HR issues in a company that is doing well are quite different from HR issues in a company that's doing badly. And I would like to ask a question about our country. Is our country today, the economy of our country, doing well or doing badly? Are we in an expanding economy or in a contracting economy? Today, our government is saying is that we will expand after the COVID pandemic is over. Is this realistic? Because I think if you look at the statistics of the last 4 years, one understands that the crisis that the economy is in today did not arise because of COVID. It was already there before COVID. In fact, it did not arise because of demonetization, though demonetization had a tremendous impact. It was already there prior to demonetization. And if you look at the statistics, for example, about bank advances to industries, right from beginning of 2016, there has been a decline, a downward trend. So what we have today is a different kind of a problem. I will try to summarize it. There are systematic crises in very major sectors, whether it is power sector, whether it is construction sector, whether it is banking sector, whether it is telecom sector, whether it is agriculture. There are systematic crises in every sector which have to be addressed by different policies. And there are some new crises which are unfolding, which we can talk about later. Now, in this background, I would say that therefore, these 4 labor codes, they are, in my opinion, HR people will not have a big problem with these 4 labor codes, nor will trade unions have a big problem with these 4 labor codes. Because in the present circumstances, these 4 labor codes are what we may call a non-starter. This is not going to get off the ground. The main reason for that being that you cannot implement labor laws without the cooperation of the labor organizations, without the cooperation of the workers. And since this is unilateral, since this is something which has happened, you know, just by a coterie of people sitting with a coterie of maybe some other people, I think that they don't realize that this is unimplementable, and therefore it will not have any of the consequences that are being proposed. It will not lead to investment. It will not lead to jobs. We can only see what happened. For example, this is not the first time that something like this was done. In 2014, similar laws were passed in the state of Rajasthan. Was there increase in employment and increase in investment and increase in jobs in Rajasthan? No. There were other consequences, unforeseen consequences, particularly political consequences for the government which enacted these laws. And it is unilateral not only in that it has not taken on board the labor organizations. In fact, it has not taken on board the state governments. And if this government seems to think that they can do many things because they are in majority in parliament, therefore they can do many things. But they are making a mess in every decision that they are taking unilaterally. I will not talk about the other messes that they're creating in the Northeast or Kashmir or regarding various acts that they have passed. I will not mention that. But they are making a mess of industry and labor relations by also not taking on board key sections like governments. And if you don't take state governments on board while passing these legislations, you're not going to be able to implement these because labor is in the concurrent list. And this is something that the government would understand. Same goes for educational policy also, but these are all issues which are on the agenda today, which have to be discussed. So my final point is that actually this is a political decision taken by this government. And the main reason is not expansion of employment, but their main purpose seems to be the relocation of industry from some states to BJP states like Uttar Pradesh. Okay. And if they think that the state governments of the other states are going to cooperate in the relocation of their industry to other states, again, this is, I think, not realistic. This is not going to happen. Now, since it is a political attack on the entire trade union movement, on the entire history of labor rights, the trade unions also will be responding to this appropriately politically. And that is the last point I want to make, that all the trade unions have come together to oppose these, these impositions. There are major democratic issues involved. It's not just trade unions, even the farmers now are, have joined this, and there are other sections which also are coming on board. So this is likely to result in a major political mobilization in the months to come. And this is related also to issues of migrant workers. This is related to the issue of how the alternate political agenda that this government has. I think what is going to happen because of the trade union unity, because of the workers' unity, is that we are going to see a different political agenda in the days to come. Post-COVID situation does require alternate economic policies. Post-COVID situation does require not only economic policies, but the HR policies which go with these economic policies. There is a very bright future for our country. If we recognize the need for these alternate policies, our Prime Minister himself is now using the language which was used by Jawaharlal Nehru, many years back, that of Atmanirbharta. Yes, there is a tremendous scope for development of our economy in an Atmanirbhar manner, but you can't do that by weakening the public sector institutions. You can't do that by weakening the public sector banking system. So it requires alternate policies, and it is only the trade unions and the working class today which is in a position to articulate these policies. But I'm sure when this will happen, and this is going to happen now in the coming months, it will not be only the trade unions, it will be the trade unions, it will be the farmers, and it will be a large section of the middle class which will be joining hands to give an alternate perspective to the country in the days to come. So with these comments, I will conclude. Thank you.
Thank you, Vivekji. And once again, apologies, I did notice that you had joined. But your views are so very important. And, from, there are two ends of spectrum. One saying that, ease of doing business is being attempted by these changes, which could be controversial. And I know I'm speaking in front of 4 very firebrand national trade union leaders. To the other extreme, where they're saying it is completely undemocratic and tripartism has been thrown to the winds, etc. But that's why these debates are there. Coming back, and we have very limited time, and I wanted to give extra time right now because it gives an overview. After Mr. Vittala Rao speaks for some time, we'll go into very specifics, and to respect the audience which is there in large numbers. I can clearly see it's about 300. We have to leave time for question answers, and actually the real churn comes out of question answers, which is so very good. So without taking much time, Mr. Vittala Rao, if you can state very quickly what has been your take, and then I'll come to some specifics. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Sharad. I deem it an excellent opportunity for me to come and participate in this wonderful seminar today. In fact, all 4 national veterans are here, and I'll just give you 2-3 thoughts so that one can take it forward. Now here, as HR professionals, we are in the field for the last so many years. One thing right field we have practiced, that is the development of excellent employee relations. That has been our motto, and that's what we have been doing it. Here, when we talk of employee relations, we do not talk of labor laws at all. If we talk of labor laws, then employee relations cannot come. Now, from the point